I am Marwan Cameron, and this is The Conduit. All right, y'all, it is 3 o'clock. It is Wednesday in Kitsap County. Time to go in on another show. I've got Anton here, man of motivation,
Yes.
mom, giving students hope. How you doing there, brother Anton? Let me give you applause first before you respond. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm here with you, man. So that's always a good thing, man. Things are moving forward.
I like it. I like it. Well, we're going to get into quite a bit today in this next hour. So, you had a few guests that were going to be on, but we'll have them on some other times. Why don't you let people know who some of the people are that you plan on having the show in the
Um,
future?
I'm gonna be having some of the staff come in, like they're gonna be in the process of being facilitated. But I have some of my youth counselors come in, tell you a little bit about what they've been through in their life, and tell you a lot about the changes that they're making and the great things that they're trying to do and help the community, and what really gave them that motivation to change their life, and basically how we help each other make it every day. Because any type of bad habit or characteristics or things that you've been doing in your past that you've done for a while, they become bad habits, and in turmoil you tend to go back to what you know. So every day, every day, even though every day I wake up and my mind state isn't anything like it used to be, at times, like if something happens, you resort to what you know. And even though I've came to a place in my life where I'm able to understand that that's just an emotion that I'm going through and I don't have to act on it, I'm learning that it takes sometimes somebody to be like, hey, it's good, it's gonna be good. Sometimes you need that nudge to let you know that it's just an emotion, that you can let it go, because for so long I thought it was an emotion. I thought it was a way of life. My reactions to things and how I responded to things and how I had to be. If that
You said something really powerful in there, and I wanted to ask you. Uh, in turmoil, you tend to go back to what you know. So, how do you not go back to what you know? How do others that you look up to that were in the life, that are out of the life and living a whole nother life, they reinvented themselves? How do they not go back? Because turmoil is going to come. You're going to lose loved ones. You're going to have sickness. You're going to have tragedy. What is that? What's the answer there?
I mean, to be honest, it comes down to a point. Turmoil, like turmoil, people deal with it different. So, it comes down to a point to where you just get tired of doing the same things and having the same nothing, because if you add it up, I done spent most of my life doing a whole bunch of stuff that never amounted to nothing. So at 41 years of my life, I'm not where I should be as a 41-year-old man. And that's because of the choices that I made when I was young. So you tend to go back to what you know in turmoil, meaning like I got out of prison. And instead of me going back to what I know, because there's been hard times in this year and some change that I've been out, like money wise, getting out, trying to get a job, dealing with people and going through all that. Like that's the breaking point for most cats that do time in juveniles. You get out, you don't have no support, you resort to what you know. But then I just think that everybody comes to a time in their life where they want to change, and they want to do something that they love, because a lot of times, just in the way that society is and the lives that we've lived, and the money not being right in our families, we choose to live to survive. We're not living to live and love life. We're just living to survive, and we cap that in that we're living. But eventually, like, at one time I thought I loved gang banging. But as I got older and I was in prison and I was watching TV and I'm seeing these little kids get killed every day, man. And that sits on you, because I don't care who you were. If you were in them streets and you were doing things that gang members do, there's gonna come a point in your life where you're gonna feel like the things that you did in your life ain't sitting right with your heart, especially if you become a person that has love for God and love for family. You sit back and you question, like, man, what would I do if something happened to my family like that? Or what would I do if something happened to my family and somebody did something like that to my family? And then, it came a point in my life, my mom never missed a visit you know. And I watched her health. I watched this healthy, beautiful white woman that raised me in the ghetto, man, and gave me things that I didn't realize she gave me until it was too late,
Mm.
you know. And that type of turmoil, like my mama died the day before Thanksgiving, and to be honest, I thought that was gonna break me, but it's what made me. Because for
Why? Why
24
did that make you?
because I watched my mom survive and have heart attacks and strokes the whole time I was in prison. And the one thing that she always told me when she came to visit me, she always told me, "I'm gonna see my baby free before I go on. I gotta know that you're gonna be okay and you're gonna be stable." So every day that I wake up, I think for me, my surroundings motivate me. Like Miss Deborah motivates me, you know, because for one, it's hard to be a black woman in America, but it's hard to be a black woman that's trying to help people. We ain't even gonna put race on it. Trying to help people do better in their life. You motivate me. Just seeing somebody that comes from where I come, knows things that I know, and can sit in front of me and articulate itself so well and talk to people on their level. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. So I guess what motivates me not to do the things that I used to do, or the people, especially the black people. I'm gonna be honest, man. I've seen a negative image painted on colored people
Mhm.
since I was young, and like it's easy to tear somebody down. We tear people down every day, just in simple conversation. You tell them you don't like their shoes, that might tear them down. But what I find difficult is how easy it is for black people to tear each other down. Black people of business, black people of success act like they can't work or help other black people that are successful. And the kids watch that. So we grow up in a nation to where I'd rather do good and you do bad, instead of we find a way to come together and do great together.
Right. Right. There's plenty enough for everyone. So, as people are watching, I hope what they'll do is they'll type in the chat and help us out. What are some of the tools that we can give to each other to resist doing the old thing, right? You're gonna lay back on your laurels when things get tough, when things get stressful, when you're out here and you feel like you're alone, right? Anton was talking about COVID and people were isolated and alone, makes it really difficult, right? Yeah, shout out to Mark. Sounds like Tipping Points Part 2. Absolutely. All these things kind of go together for sure. And with that, people need tools. And for me, and you and I were talking earlier, I'm critical of the Black church, especially, but it has to go beyond just prayer and faith, right?
Yeah.
And I have a podcast where I talk about faith and what faith is, and the fact that faith without work is dead, but the work has to come first, and that's what builds your faith. That makes
Guaranteed.
sense?
It has to. I mean, when you look how you broke it down and your analogy to it, it has to make sense. There's no way that it can't make sense to me. Now, somebody else might interpret it different. I'm just giving you an interpret of what I see. So to
Right.
me, it has to make sense. And I'll tell you this: like going to the penitentiary was a gift and a curse, because I could be dead right now, truthfully. But what it did was it made me look within, and it made me reach. It made me reach within myself and find myself and find a person that I loved and I liked. And when I talk to these kids and when I see these kids out here, my message is to just be okay with yourself, because there's so many people out here proclaiming to be something that they're not, or pretending that they're somebody that they're not. And a person, it's okay to be weird. Sometimes I'm weird. It's okay for you to be considered weird. Weird is just a different word for fresh. You know what I'm saying? You gotta start looking different. Everybody has to set a wave. So I mean, I guess for me, it just came a time as a man that I had to find myself, and I had to be okay with who I was. I had to get over my past, and I had to accept that life ain't been great, but I had to understand that life is going to get a lot greater when I start doing and putting in the energy. It's true when they say what you put into life is what you get out.
Mm, mm. That's facts. It's really important that you do get comfortable in your own skin. You know, uh, you were talking about being a product of interracial relationship, right? And not fitting in on either side. And for me, where that translates is I would be considered a nerd. I like anime, I like video games. I'd be called an educated lame or a square. And depending on what circles you're in, that ain't cool. So, you might try to suppress who you are, which is suppressing who you are. Don't suppress who you are. You gotta roll into that. And when you can do that, and when you wake up to that, it is so freeing that you can be who you are. And it doesn't matter, right? I tell folks all the time that are hypercritical on how other people see them. And I tell them, look, if something happens to you, are they going to take care of your children? Are they going to pay your rent? Are they going to bail you out? Are they going to come visit you in the hospital? No. So if they're not, why do you give a damn what they think about you?
For real.
You
What they
know,
eat ain't gonna make you go to the bathroom. You feel me?
be who you are.
You
So I
got
can
to. You
be
gotta.
silly and I can floss with my 10-year-old daughter in public in front of everyone. And people say, oh, he's stupid. He's this and that. Man, I'm Mr. Cameron and I'm doing my thing and it's all good. I'm gonna sleep well at night knowing that I'm doing what I want to do and I'm living my best life and just trying to provide for myself and the people that I love.
I mean, I got a challenge for anybody that's watching this right now. Like, just for this week, just every day, the first three people that you don't know that you see, just tell them something great about them. Be like, hey, you got them shoes right there. I just want to see how many people see the difference in a person when you compliment them and you greet them with positivity. Then the first thing that you look for is why you can't speak to them or why you don't want to mess with them or what you think this person is or how you think this person acts. Because I get it all the time. I mean, look at me. I'm a director of a gang prevention. But if you look at me, I look like a gang member because I was. But at the same time, if you sit down and talk to me, you'll understand that's just a part of my past.
All right, I'm typing that in the chat. So tell three people something good or great about themselves, right?
Good or great. I mean, it's just I say 2022 should be a year of love, man. And I'm telling you, the way when we get back as a people that love each other, because everybody says they have this patriotic love for America. So my challenge would be if you're patriotic and you really love America, it's time to start loving people instead of having anger or every exchange has to be a question of whether you're tripping or you're not. We should be able to have fair exchanges with perfect strangers every day and be a beautiful outcome because you just met somebody that you don't know that could give you some game that you didn't know, such as when you were just saying you're a nerd. I'm gonna tell you something. I got a best friend and he's a nerd. He watches all the cartoons, what stays up till 3 in the morning, um, likes to laugh and if you met him, you would think like, oh, he's white dude. But then when you sit down and talk to him, you're just thinking like he's him and he's so full of himself. It never makes you not want to be a part of it. It makes you want to gravitate towards it. So I would say we're all green to something. We all say we like money, but I'm sure there's somebody in Wall Street that leaves work every day and hops in an escorted vehicle, and he probably looks at the same person that got a $3 million chain on and says he's square the money. That's chump change. He's wasting money. So being unknown to things really doesn't make you weird, or it just makes you unknown to things, and that's how you get to know things is when you meet people and you can embrace somebody and they can give you who they are, and you could find something to like in that personality. I mean, I guess that's what I had to do. I had to stop hating.
Man, I like that one. Stop hating. I say that a lot of times, and I'm just joking with friends. It's like don't be a hater. You
Oh,
know.
it's we naturally we I think it's like you catch it. I was just watching something. It was like on IG, but I remember a long time ago, somebody had a video. It was like Bow Wow or something, and the dude was talking to a girl, and Bow Wow drove past. He was like, "I'll do something to Bow Wow," and the girl looked at him. She was like, "He's just a singer. What, you want to beat him up for being a singer?" And the dude was like, "No, he ain't." And that the moral of it was, you want to beat this dude up for being an entertainer,
Right.
like because he doesn't look at Drake. Prime example. Let's use Drake because everybody globally knows who Drake is. Most rappers hate Drake. And the first thing they say is he ain't gangster. But if you listen to him, he's never said he's gangster. He ain't even said he got a gun. He says somebody with him might have a gun if you mess with him. But he's just talking about women and money. So it all goes into how easy it is for us to box each other in. And it's easy to say, I don't mess with you. But I'm trying to figure out why is it so hard to say you do? So it's kind of like when you deal with these kids and you give them these scenarios, you see how bright they are right there, because this starts making sense to them. Like, because I remember I told myself, the same person I said is my friend that's a nerd, we were sitting in the cell, we were cellies, and I said, I'm sorry, man, I'm a hater. I realized I was a hater because I hadn't changed my life yet. So he was changing his life. He didn't gangbang. So I used to be in the cell like, hey man, you ain't popping no more, man. You on some square stuff. And he was like, he told me, this is the realest thing I could say. He asked me, he was like, man, if you got love for me and we brothers like you say we is, why you just can't be happy that I found something that makes me happy? And it took me 7 years to understand that statement. I was reading a book called The Millionaire Messenger by Brendan Burchard. And in that book, it's small. It talks about how you can sell your story and get the most money and the most out of telling your stories. And what he said was social and self oppression. While I was reading that book, I was reading social oppression. And in social oppression, it says that when you're on a path, your friends tend to try to make you feel weird about your change. Meaning, if you're on a path, and let's say like you wanted to be a podcast, you did everything business wise to do the things that you wanted to do, and I'm sure along the way you had people telling you couldn't do it.
For sure.
That's social oppression, and what ends up happening is along that way, just like I question myself sometimes because people that see me and be like, man, you wasting your time, man. You can't save nobody, man. Look what you done been through, And then what I then realized is that we oppress people, and then you'll start questioning yourself. When you get socially oppressed by your friends, you get to wondering, are you weird? And is you tripping? Or are you doing the right thing? And a lot of times people can't make it through the social oppression and the self-oppression. They can make it through one, but they're not mentally capable of making it through both, because that's a hard oppression when you're oppressed by your foes and friends, and then you oppress yourself afterwards. And I mean, that all goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is like you got to find yourself, because you got to start understanding and looking for positivity. Like me nowadays, if I see anybody that gives me a negative image of themselves, I just tend to try to stay away from until I can have a positive interaction with them. I mean, it becomes, we got to police ourselves and take responsibility for our actions instead of always looking to blame somebody else for the way that they reacted. So, I mean, it all comes down to.
Absolutely. And, to answer your question, one of the ways to discover why we aren't able to work with each other and why we hate is this Race and Equity Summit that's coming up here at the end of the month from Slavery Initiative. So they're going to have Carmen Vest, who was the ex-chief of police in Seattle. She was chief of during COVID and the riots. And then Dr. Joy DeGruy, who wrote the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, which talks about a lot of, the barriers that keep us from being able to work together. So, check out Up From Slavery Initiative's Facebook page. This information should be everywhere, but it is Friday, March 25th and Saturday, March 26th. 9 to 3 on Friday is a $50 registration. On Saturday, it's free, but you still do need to register 10 to 3:30 p.m. So I wanted to put that in there because that was cogent to our conversation.
Yes, it was.
So, again, I'm a big tangible person, right? If you're trying to help me, I need you to give me a tool, something that I can use in my toolbox. And for me, one of the things that I like telling folks is they need to protect their meat. Have you heard that before?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an old saying.
And your meat is an acronym. And the acronym for meat is money, energy, attention, and time. And so oftentimes, especially young brothers can get caught up in, trying to chase women, trying to chase money. They're not on their purpose and they get distracted. But if you're protecting your meat, then you're going to be going in the direction that you want to go into. So protect your money, protect where your energy goes. What are you focused on? One of my mentors, when I was in my master's program, they said to me, look down at the ground and pretend you got a sheet of paper and put that paper down and read it. And that paper says, is what I'm doing now serving my purpose? And if it's not, then immediately change what you're doing and start serving your purpose. because we're going to get off track from time to time. But think about that metaphorical paper and just look at it. Is what I'm doing now serving my purpose? What I'm doing now is serving my purpose, so I know I'm good, right?
Yeah.
What are you paying attention to? And definitely, what are you giving your time to? And we think about energy, right? You could be scrolling Facebook or having conversations about what this one and that one was doing and all the gossip and this and that. It's a waste of energy. How are you getting forward? How are you going to make sure that when those dark days come, when the trials and tribulations, the turmoil, because that's the terminology that you used, happens, that you don't fall back into negative patterns or you don't go back to the old thing or the easy thing, because that I know how to do. And you know what? They expect it from me anyway. So why not? I'm gonna be what they think I am. Protect your meat. What's your thoughts on that,
Guaranteed.
Anton?
Real talk, man. I like that. I like that. And I went through a cloud. I don't know if it was anger management or something, and that's where I know that phrase from, protect your meat. But it was something different. But they used the meat as an analogy that they used.
Yeah, for sure. Now I got that from Coach Greg Adams, so I got to give him a shout out for that. It's kind of a double entendre because typically we're talking about females, right? Protect your meat. Don't get someone pregnant. Don't bring home an STD.
Yeah.
Don't get caught out there. But we get so hyper focused on other things that society, you and I were talking about earlier, that has nothing to do with what we're trying to do, right? Many of us have kids. We love our kids. We don't want our kids to experience what we experienced, but we're not protecting our own meat. And so then our kids, what happens to them? We're allowing society to raise our children, and the probability is particularly low and continuously dropping that they're going to turn out okay if we don't have our hands on the wheel of their lives.
I mean, it's sad because like I got a 17-year-old son, and like he done said it that they tell him just do good enough to pass. Like they're
Mm.
not even they're not even telling kids to try their hardest. They're telling them to shoot for 50s and 60s just to get a D so they ain't got to deal with them. And then a lot of people are in a situation where they got to work to pay the bills, so the kid is usually by themselves when they get home from school. So a lot of parents are really missing what's going on with their kids because they're trying to survive and take care of that home and that family. So like I took my son out of regular high school and made him do online school, and he had to start off 11th grade all the way over. But
I gotta give you a horn for that one.
yes, I mean, I'm a firm believer in this, man. Without education, you ain't. I mean like this. I'm not saying about going to school, but without being educated and having an understanding of culture and things and places, and you're not gonna be able to survive. Like I told my son all the time, like, man, I guess you think at 18 you're gonna walk out the door, some pretty girl's gonna drive up in a Benz and hand you a bag of money and keys to this house and this mansion and tell you you're the dream life that she's been waiting to live for. That's not gonna happen. We all waited for it and it never came. She never drove. Like, you know.
She had a Hyundai Sonata,
Yeah, she's in a
huh?
Sonata.
With a donut and a dirty back seat.
Yeah, and I mean, let's go back to like when we were talking earlier, man. The great thing about dealing with the youth, and the same with like I talk to older cats that are gang members that want to change their life, and they're trying to figure out what made me want to change my life. Like that's a scary change. Like when you make that change, you got to understand the stigmas and the taboos that have been attached to if you don't want to be a gang member. You automatically die. You know, these are things, and in life that's happened. These aren't false tales. These aren't false truths. These are things that have happened to make people believe these things happen. But for the things like that to stop is when the gang members start changing what it looks like to make these changes. Like you get on YouTube, you watch California, you got OG gang members coming out telling gang members, you're killing people on live, you're doing way too much. Like this got to end because you guys are taking this way too far. And then you get to looking at these older men that come from these neighborhoods that are famous, and you got this old man basically telling them, hey, y'all got to do better, man. Like, give it up. Like, like to anybody watching, you can't post up on that street your whole life. You ain't gonna go for it. Just like right now in the Puget Sound in Seattle, Tacoma, you will die if you want to play in the streets. They killing every night. We watch the news. It's sad. 16, 17-year-olds getting killed at the DMV on accident every day throughout the Puget Sound. This is uh, I would say you would think it would be an emergency. You would think that the homeless population would be an emergency for the state instead of always showing on the news how much of a problem it is for business owners. Well, the business owners shouldn't take it out on the mental health or the juveniles that have no home because their parents is on drugs. The business owners should be asking legislators, why are you taking them to prison instead of giving them the treatment and mental health facilities that they need? Because I just came out of prison a year ago, and I can tell you, 85% of the prison system is mental health inmates and not criminals, which creates a more dangerous environment because mental health people have a problem. And then you have violent offenders with a lot of time that ain't going to tolerate when something happens. And then you got two people with the lack of understanding, and only bad things can happen when you have something like that. And, you know, that's something that we need to point out because these kids are falling victim. Oregon has one of the biggest homeless runaway populations in the United States. Not too long ago, while I was in prison, I knew a female, her son ran away. He made it to Portland. In Portland, somehow they met somebody and were put up in this high-rise hotel, top-notch, like 5 or 6 juveniles. Well, when they got to Arizona, the police pulled them over and was like, yeah, we've been telling you guys. And they called her and they told her, hey, we got your son. He was picked up by the cartel and he was on his way to go to Arizona, but we were watching him to make sure that they didn't make it into Mexico. So with things like that happening, you have to be aware of what's going on in these streets today because your kid can be harmed and he can be hurt. We've seen it. A little girl got stabbed to death out here. A little white boy just got kidnapped and killed over a pound of weed in his body, dismembered. Like, if that doesn't make you think there's some serious stuff that needs to be looked at, and I'm not saying give everybody 80 years because that doesn't help. I'm a prime example of I made myself better. The prison and the guards didn't make me want to change. If anything, they did everything to make me want to stay the same and hate the world. But instead, I had to understand the system that I've been trapped in most of my life. And I had to understand the way that I trapped myself into that system. And once I figured out those traps, such as they're going to let you go through the juvenile a whole bunch of times and give you slaps on the wrist because it's a buildup. They want to get you as a young black man in an adult system at 17 and give you 50 years. That's instant birth control. I mean, we can go into this thing, and I'm not going to make it a race thing, but there is some racist stuff that goes on. But you can break down incarceration of young African-American males at the age of 17, 16, and 15, and you can basically say for a culture of, these are statistical facts that I've read, an African-American male can have 2 babies in 1 year. The average white male only is capable of producing 1, same as Mexicans. These are statistics that I read, and maybe they've changed since then. That's about, I'll say 7-10 years ago that I read these statistics. But if you think about it, then you get these juveniles and they pass these bills and say, hey, they committed violent crimes. We can charge them as an adult. But what people aren't failing to realize that as a juvenile, your bones and your muscles aren't strong enough to handle physical abuse from a male. So what you end up seeing is victims. You're sending these kids that messed up in their life, you're sending them to prison to be raped, extorted, or become the rapists and the extorters. So this is something that people need to look at, because one day you may be watching TV and it's your kid.
Let me ask you something. Let me preface it with this first. So the show I did earlier, we're talking about trying to get folks together, right? And collaborate and innovate, right? And, you know, today's conversation was centered around inclusion. And what I was saying was inclusion is so false right now, the way that it's set, because in many circles, inclusion is, all right, maybe we get all the leaders together and then we'll have a conversation. And trying to get a diverse set of leaders is their thought on what inclusion is. My thought is then you need to have the gang members at the table. You need to have homeless individuals at the table. That's true inclusion. That's everyone, right? Because the way we're going to solve the problem, or the problems that exist, isn't from the same people having the same conversations. It's going to be bringing everybody in to have these conversations so that they can be heard and their ideas and thoughts can be evaluated, and we can try some different things together, because that's where the answers are going to lie together. I had a board meeting, and as I put together my notes on what I'm going to say and what I think, I'm only one person. So it doesn't matter how smart I am, I can only see my perspective, no matter how much research I do. But the rest of the people in the group have their own lived experience. And so when I put the question out and they give me that feedback, I'm like, oh, I didn't see that. That's an interesting idea. Well, I like your idea, but this is why we can't do that, because you're missing that piece of information. And then we can go forward with a more holistic, framework that will have a better chance of being successful. So with that, people don't typically ask folks that have served, but what should prison reform look like? Because you spent 24 years, right?
I'm gonna tell you something. Prison reform would make the public would have to go visit the prison to see how bad they really do people in it. And I'm not saying, like, I mean, there's people that deserve to be in prison, man, just plain and simple. And I hate to say that because I was there, and I hate to wish that on anybody, but there are people that deserve to be in prison, and that's just the truth. But I will say this: you first want to send the correctional guards to take social skills and people skills, because prisons in Washington, most of them are built and surrounded by all white cities. Like, the worst close custodies in Washington are in the two farthest places on each side of the mountain, Walla Walla and Quallen Bay. And if anybody's been to Quallen Bay, they'll tell you. I got a black boy grew up in my neighborhood, and you'd be like, well, how old was he? They'd be like, well, he had kids. He's probably like 30. I looked at the lady. I said, well, if he was a boy, then obviously you grew up when a black man could never be a man. And that was a guard speaking. And she said, well, yeah, that was the only person we ever seen. I never seen another one. You got guards, literally, Quallen Bay. You got guards that were in Quallen Bay. A black guard was chased out of Quallen Bay by staff at a business barbecue because he was black, and they told him don't show up. Wow. So you got to think that. So picture these young kids that you send to prison, and their first interaction with staff are racist old white men. That's the truth. And I'm not sitting here trying to, there's good, I'll say this, there's decent officers that come to work and do 8 hours, but there's a whole lot that come to work to take out whatever's going on in their life on you. Like, you're talking about people that come in your cell, search your cell, but turn it upside down and throw all your property on the floor and make it dirty, and then won't give you no blankets. We're talking about DOC in Washington searches houses with canines, lets these dogs go in everybody's room and on their bed, and does not give you blankets for it. So you're in a bed that was clean, sleeping with a canine unit dog that's been sleeping outside in your sheets, smelling your pillow, sitting his ass on your pillow, and then you have to respectfully lock your door and go to sleep when they don't give you blankets. Like, they ain't giving release plans. At the age of 17 and 18, I had 3.5 years of good time. They took that in my first year of prison. Wow. So you got to think that the system is designed not to let anybody go. The person, like we said, like I told you earlier, the man who created the Washington State Sentence Review Act came out in 2012, 13, and told the system, I messed up. I designed a point system that never allows change for an inmate. So they come in violent and they leave no matter what they do as a violent offender, such as myself. Like, because I've been in fights, but you got to think, at 18 years old, what person do you think is going to go to the worst prisons that you have and not fight? Because the only other outcome of that, I ain't even going to speak on, because it just ain't going to happen to me, but it does happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So answer just a minute. So answer this question for me. Give us maybe 1 to 3 things that we could do to start prison reform. So if someone gets it, does a crime, they have to be locked up, which we understand. What should it look like so they have a chance at learning some skills, coming out and having a better option, a better probability of not coming back in?
I would first say that you would have to change the education system because their system is designed not to allow people with a long range of time to go to education. So if you have a life without sentence, if you have a life without sentence or 80 years, you'll never be able to take an AA program in prison because you have too much time. They basically say your time range makes you non-avail to need an education. You're going to die in there. So, I mean, what
Wow.
kind of hope do you give the person that got 60 years but can't go get an AA, can't go do the things to motivate him to want to do better? You can't go to graphic design. You can't go to all these different things due to the fact the system booked you and gave you 40 years. I
You know
mean,
what? That's interesting. I'm just I'm hearing this stuff for the first time. Some things I know, right? But this is what I mean by the group discussion. So I'm listening to you, and I'm like, okay, yeah. On the one hand, I could see, oh, you're a lifer. Why put you through this? Why spend money to give you education in this way? But again, if you have life, you can still be, a service to society. So instead of saying, like you said, graphic design, well, I'm here. I need to do something productive with my lifetime of being in here. So if they go to school and they learn how to do graphic design, they could work for different companies and things like that. Maybe they could support their children that are still on the outside or their families or do whatever, right? And actually give them a livable wage while they're in, if that's what they're looking at. And that would change. I think that would change quite a bit. Continue.
it will, like, you got to think like it's easy for the public when you hear somebody did something crazy or did something bad, when you hear somebody shot somebody to death, it's easy to just convict that person and just let's be done with them, right? But the thing is this is what's happening. You're sending them to prison because the public wants things like that need to be addressed, and they do. But the thing is the public is only one-sided. You're voting for all these laws, but you're not understanding what kind of person that you're gonna deal with after all these years. Because confinement, scientifically, they're showing if you lock somebody in a cell for 2 year stretches, that's mentally making them worse. That's why in New Mexico and different states that have scientifically looked into it, you can't go to the hole for more than 15 days. They have to let you out unless you're a threat to yourself or others. In Washington, I came to prison at 17. I was 18 years old. I went to the hole for a year program. The person next to me, he had already been in the hole 11 years. I just did 24 years. He's been in the hole 34 years. His name is Tim Cannon. He cut the Hillside Strangler's throat in PC and Walla Walla. But this dude is crazy. Like, he does stuff to himself and barricades himself in and makes the police beat him up. You'll never hear about this dude that's been locked up all these years and been confined and never even given a chance to get out. Like, they got people that's been so far in the hole, they did 9 years straight in the hole. The day they got out, he was right back in the pod with me. And I was like, you just did 9 years. He's like, I couldn't handle it. Too much noise. I ain't never been around that many people. Like, he hadn't. So you're prime example. I don't know if you heard this, but in Spokane, somebody shot his wife and her daughter in Spokane about 6-7 months ago. He was just released from the penitentiary. Well, they tell you everything about him. He got all these fights in prison, but you know what they don't tell him? That before he was released in prison, he was doing a indefinitely whole program. He never was given the treatment that he needed to get out. He never was given a release plan, and he never was given the help that he needed to adjust to being free. And we're talking about a person who did 20-something years assaultive their whole time. And, like, somebody sent me a video clip of him being interviewed in the county, and he said, man, I just want to say this. Mental health needs help. Like, you need to help the mental health because they're not giving them no outlets, and stuff like this happen. And it was sad because I know this person. I got his number in my phone. A week before this happened, he called me and he said, hey man, you doing real good, man. Keep doing good, man. Don't fall victim to the old ways or let nobody get you caught up. You're really doing good, man. Keep, you know what I'm saying? The next week he shoots his wife and her daughter. And yes, it's heinous. And that's not, nobody deserves that. But at the same time, the public needs to know you can't just, you got to add stuff up, and you got to look into a person's history and understand what they've been through and what they're going through and what might have caused this. We don't look at what might have caused nothing anymore. We just say, hey, lock them up. That's what we
Right.
deal with. So I guess the best way for reform would be for the public to force DOC and the police to put everything on the table when they deal with them, like like they do. Because you got to think the public is blind to a lot of things, and what they don't understand is that the legislators don't care what happens after they go to jail. They just need that to go to jail for votes. Like literally, they're making quotas for what's going on in their life. You don't see too many politicians after they've been in office knocking door to door just to say hello and thank you for voting for me a week after votes is in. You don't see it. So the public, just like the juveniles and the youth, need to start being aware of their surroundings, and they need to watch. And what the public and the youth need to do is you need to start challenging every type of policy put in place that can affect you and yours and your family and your kids. Because if you don't, you will fall victim to this society that we live in. It's built that way.
And it could be you or someone that's close to you. It could be your son or your daughter. Real easy. Real easy. You know, my brother, he did a lot of time. You know, he did a few, 8, I think he did like an 11, 13-year stretch. And I mean, he was just a naturally buff dude. He didn't work out, just yoked. And even with that, the police treated him so bad. Like he had sued federal probation officers and won. I mean, they were just on him, right? Unfortunately, he was found hanging in the Kent jail cell on 9/11 2 years ago, and he had just got arrested, and he within an hour he was hanging dead in a holding cell. Now, make that make sense. I've done a
I'm
few
gonna tell you
investigations.
this. I will tell you this out of my own experience. Since I've been out, they sent me to jail one time,
Mhm.
and I had missed my check-in, and I called him. I called him that night, and I said, "Hey, I think I mistaked my day. I didn't make it, but I will be there in the morning for sure. I didn't try to miss it. This was a mistake. I'll be in there." Well, I already had a warrant for my arrest in. So at 6 in
Mm.
the morning, I got a text back from my CCO, and it said, "Oh, your warrant's already in." I don't know how many times I've been to check in with my CCO and seen people piss dirty and walk out and leave. They
Mhm.
told me they got to treat me different and gave me 13 days for not showing up when I've watched people miss for months, and there's no, you know what I'm saying? So it's a system that'll fool you. I'll tell you this. Sometimes they do the right thing, but a lot of times they don't.
Right. Well, like you said, the way that people are treated when they're on the inside, my brother would purposely get himself locked up in the hole and I mean and do crazy stuff like smear feces on his walls and things like that just to keep himself safe. And it sounds so crazy until you listen and you hear the stories, right? Um, but that's what kept him alive in that situation. He wasn't in the gangs. Um, but
And
I
that's
mean
harder. You feel
yeah,
me? At the end, to be honest, if you ain't in no gangs in prison, then you really in a bad situation because you don't have nothing to stop nobody from doing nothing to you.
right. And Anton, they kept moving him around too. He's been in so many prisons, it's not even funny. So they just
That's
kept
how they did me.
kept moving him so he couldn't get used to anything and set up kind of any kind of established ties and support system inside. So everywhere he's going is new.
Yeah,
You know?
they call it the gas treatment. That's what they call it. They call it the gas. They keep moving you on a bus and you never get to settle. So you never
Mm,
get your property. You get to lose and stuff. It's all a mental warfare.
right, right. And then it's like when he gets out, then what do you expect? You know?
I mean, I would hopefully they looked into the fact that he was hanging because that would be a lawsuit right there because you got to think there's so many people. Just think of this. I forget the dude's name, but when I was in the joint, they came out with that dude. He had a whole bunch of stars and rich people with the child stuff, and he ended up hanging himself. He ended up being found dead in the federal holding cell.
Hmm.
Well, they're investigating that right now because they're saying that was more than just he hung himself. And you got to think about what was all tied to that. There was politicians and all these other people tied into it. So they're investigating that whole act on it being bigger than just DOC. So that allows you to know the type of stuff that can go on in a prison facility if you have the right person above that going for somebody, because I was locked up with two old men and they had been down 40 years. They're out now. And they robbed the BP gas station here and they killed somebody. And I know they told me when they were dealing with the people that BP basically said in Washington, like, if you let them out, we'll pull all our gas stations out your state. So they did all this time basically on politics. They didn't, you can't, like, that's the difference. And the public doesn't know this. You get more time for shooting somebody that lives than you do for somebody who dies. A first-degree assault carries more time than murder. So that alone should let you know that things ain't right. When I could shoot you in the leg and I get more time than if I take your life. So what do you think shooters are going to be thinking? I got to take a life just to get 5 less.
So is that why police are the way they are with black folks?
I believe police are.
We don't survive it very often, right?
No, and then you got to think. Let's touch that subject real quick if we can. You got to look at it like this. They've been shooting these people, and then when you ask the police, when you think about it, like, it's crazy. Like when you break everything down to it, it's like, how could you say a life is less? Just think of that. You get more time for shooting somebody than you do for killing them, and then you turn around and try to explain how a police officer would value this life over a shot to the foot. Because if you shoot me in my foot and I ain't got no gun, I'm laying down. I'm just gonna keep it real. I'm gonna cry and I'm gonna do all. You gonna meet a person that's in surrender, because I'm like, you shot me in my foot, I'm down. Yeah, I don't know too many people that you got to shoot to death to make them stop.
Right.
And they're trained to shoot in this area. And anybody knows with a gun, this is a death shot. This is all death shots. They're not trained to shoot at your leg and wound you to stop you from moving. And then you got to add it up like this. Just watch all the white encounters with the police and weapons when there was an assailant with a weapon that was white, and then just look at it when there was an assailant with no weapon that was black. The black people died more with no weapon than the white man died with a weapon. And I'm not trying to be racist. My mama white. I love white people. But we got to start being honest, man. We got to, as a world and as a people that's supposed to be a nation, because we can't be a nation if we don't mess with each other. Then we're just tribes. We're just tribes. All we are is a whole bunch of tribes spread out across America claiming to be Americans, you know. And yes, it's sad that the history that we come from, our life has been so easy to take and never been challenged as worth nothing. Because if you think about slavery, we was hung from trees and stuff put in our mouth that never should have been put in our mouth. And it's all based off of somebody else's hate towards us, not us doing anything hateful towards somebody else. But just think of the black man's history. The black man has died for just being him and accepting that he's a black man and he ain't doing too well and he got to work for this man. The black man has died for that. The white man hasn't died for that like that, you know. And then you equivalent it to this. The Holocaust. If the Holocaust is and believe me, they didn't deserve it. But we need to go back to Seal Island. I don't know if you know anything about Seal Island. It's the biggest place for great white sharks to meet in the world. They've evolved to hunt there. But if you strip Seal Island and go back to where it originates from, that's a port in between Portugal and somewhere else where they used to throw slaves and slaves were jumping off the boat. So these great white sharks have evolved in an ocean. Think about it. The ocean is big. These great whites evolved to travel all the way to Africa under the assumption that generations and generations and generations of them were eating slaves that were thrown over the boat that wouldn't do what they were told. So these sharks evolved with it. So now the seals came. Look the same as a black body in the water, don't it? So when you break that down, that's painful. Like even telling it, even though I know it, like it's painful to think about a mother that'll grab her child and drown with him before she allows him to go through what she's seeing.
Right.
And that alone should make people look like how can you give reparations for the Holocaust, but we can't get a reparations as a black man who was taken from a country, stolen from a country, but then we can't get nothing back because they say we were wrongfully taken from an owner. So How were we not wrongfully taken from Africa? Like, this is why kids should read these books. This is why I hope that if there's juveniles or just men and women listening, man, read, because that's the only way you know about the past. That's the only way you can find about where you come from and who you are. Because we do all these family trees, but you don't know whether they just telling you what they want you to know.
I
Because
can't
I
even
ain't
do my
never,
family tree. I was adopted. My mother gave me up when I was 16, so there's no tree for me to go to. You know, it starts with
if
me and goes with my
if
daughters.
if you get that, I don't know. I'll ask my wife, because there's one where you can take a DNA and it tells you through your blood.
Yeah, I've done that, so it's kind of rough. Like first cousin, second cousin. I don't really have any desire to really reach out to anyone at this point in time. I did it for my oldest daughter. So she can have maybe some of my medical history, like why do I have the things I have? Is she gonna maybe have some of the things that I have? Because I don't know. I have no family history, so I wanted to do that for her. But yeah, it's
I
something
mean,
else.
family, you gotta think, family ain't gotta be blood, man. I got a lot of family that ain't my blood, and they treat me better than some of my blood has, and that's just being honest.
Well, you know what? So funny about that. The organization is Gather Together, Grow Together. And because, I've kind of walked through the world not feeling like I really belonged anywhere, the organization is a place for everyone to come together and fit, right? It's like you can use a trigger word for folks, a misfit, come on here, you belong. There's a space for you here to grow and thrive. We gather together and we grow together. And growing, there's going to be growing pains, but we're going to grow together. So if you're up for it, there's a space for you. Let me ask you this, Anton. So, what advice do you have for short timers with 30 days left, getting ready to come home?
uh, really find yourself, really focus on what you need to do to put yourself in a better place and stay away from everything that you done did to put you there. I mean, well, how would you sum that up? Like, if you got 30 days left, you really need to focus on the things that you need. Whether you need where to live, or I didn't have to go through that because I ain't never burned no bridges. I had a good support team my whole, even when I was messing up in prison, I still had a good support team because I had a lot of friends on the street and a lot of people that ain't from that life. Like, I used to eat lunch with the preppies in school. I was a full-fledged gang member, but I ate preppies I used to go sit and eat lunch with the preppies just because I had free lunch and they had their own lunch, and I always wanted my own lunch, so I just went and sat with them so I can get Snickers, and it was my only way to mingle. But because of that and me being open to mingling, I done met a lot of people. So the people in my life helped me. So I guess what I would tell them is to find God, to be honest.
Okay, so find God. So let's say let's paint a scenario, right? They didn't do a lot of time, right? So maybe a year, two or less. So they're coming back. The same people are still on the block, right? They don't want to go back to that, but you got to go back. I mean, that seems like another trap too, right? You got to go back to where the crime was committed, and now you're kind of stuck because you're on probation. So now you're in the same element. You may not have the supports like someone like me, right? That doesn't have any family to speak of. Maybe I wasn't very social. So the people that I was social with are the people that I really shouldn't spend any time with. Or maybe even my family is in the life and I need to escape from that. At the same time, I'm looking at, do I get out and really go work at a fast food restaurant or do something like that when I can go and just, do what I was doing before and double and triple that in half the time? Like, so what's your advice for that?
Ah, I mean,
Because
I
that's a
guess
hard one to wrap your head around, right?
it's kind of hard for you to wrap your head around because I ain't never did, like, I was a juvenile when I did that type of time. But
Hmm.
I guess my for me, what I would say for me is I really got in touch with my family. Like, my last year, I was so in tune with my family and my kids and my fiance that I just you have to find something in your heart that's gonna drive you to stay focused. Like, believe me, there's been times when I just be like, man, I'm trying to do all the right things, and still these cats still treat me crazy. You feel me? And then I gotta realize, like, hey, man, in some ways you did it to yourself, but at the end of the day, man, your actions will eventually show them your purity. You feel me? So I guess The best way to answer that is we already answered it, man. Find yourself. Take them 30 days to find the best you could find to be prepared for that day you get out.
Mm, okay. And it sounds like connect with folks that are going in the right direction, right?
I mean,
Organizations like Men on a Mission, Men of
men of
Motivation.
motivation,
Yeah.
uh, survive and change, anything that can help you be better, man. My whole thing is like, if it puts you one step further in life and it's a positive thing and you could be successful, I think that you should try it.
So, there's a cliche that says, your worst day free is better than your best day on lockdown. Is that a true story?
Is it? Listen, I'd rather be. Listen, you could lock me in the shed. You can lock me in the shed. The only thing that makes it worse is when my daughter eats top ramen.
Mm.
I'm traumatized by top ramen. Like there's certain things that make me feel like I'm in prison, and you know what I'm saying. But
Oh man, the things they can do.
I know some guys that got out of prison that can make desserts out of stuff that'd blow your mind. Just you'll be like, this is, it's just. I think the best thing I could say, man, is find positivity, man, and real love. Like if I didn't have positivity and real love in my life, I wouldn't be here talking to you, man. I think that's probably the best, deepest thing that you can have is pure love. And then I'm not speaking about just relationships. I'm just about pure love. When you got people around you that love you, man, you feel like you can accomplish anything. But if you got a whole bunch of haters around you, you'll never accomplish much because you're gonna be too worried about watching what they doing.
Yeah,
So
that's deep. What the hell is true love? What's real love? What is that?
real
How do you
love is
define it?
sincere. Like, if you got a friend that's sincere, sincerity over I'm doing it because of what I'm gonna get down the line, or here, let me do this for him because I'm gonna get this. Like true love is sincere. Like I leave here sometimes, quiet as kept. There's a cat sleeps right outside this office I grew up with, like my best friend when I was little. And I see him all the time, breaks my heart. I give him money, go buy him something to eat. Not because of I do it because I got true love for him, no matter what situation is in. And now I'm at work and he's outside sleep. Like when I see him, he's still the same person he is to me. I don't look at nobody like that. I just try to. I guess since I've been out of prison, the best thing I can say is try to do things that you wish people would do for you, and
Mm.
maybe that'll start leading the example. So I try to lead by example. I try to go out my way to be kind and hope that people will see it, and maybe it'll change that day. That act of kindness will help that person see that they got better things in life to do than go buy some drugs or some alcohol with that money. They might really go buy something to eat or walk down the street and realize that's the day that they were tired of it.
So when you came home, how long did it take for you to start getting involved with wanting to help people and give of yourself in this way?
Right away for this fact, I came back to where I'm from, man. So the reason why I'm so passionate about this, I never want to be responsible for somebody to say that my past is the reason why that kid will never see daylight again, or that they got 30 years in prison. I don't want to be that big homie. That's just something that I just don't want to ever be. Instead, I just want to be a big brother that helped them see the light and do better. I want to see these little guys do great, man. I want to see the basketball stars and the girls and the boys go to the WNBA. I just want to see people rock. I ain't even gonna put race on it because it ain't a race thing, man. Um, it's it's so much that motivates me from day one, but I think it's that I owe it to myself to give back to something that I helped create in this community. Like I made my hood a big hood, like the rest of the cast that was serious. And now I just want to show the city that I was a kid and I'm mature now, and this is the real me. That was just a confused, hurt child. I'm a grown man whose heart don't hurt no more. I healed my own. I healed my own. Scars mentally will always be there, but I've looked within and I've healed all the things that I needed to heal within, so I can try to help somebody else heal, because I understand what it takes to be able to heal. Sometimes you need somebody to stand by you to let you know it's okay to hurt and to heal. You know.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that, maybe you live now with less than you did before, but you're more whole and you're more at peace?
I'm so much at peace, man. I live easy. You know, I leave here, I go in the community, I deal with the youth and go talk to them and in their neighborhoods around here, and I go talk to them and see what's on their mind and what's going on. But I mean, like I said, man, when you see it click, like you've already seen it before. You dealing with a youth and you see that light turn on.
Yeah.
That right there is what it's worth. I mean, I guess that's the best payment in it all. When you see that light click, you understand that you really touched the soul. So I mean, they say to be like God, in God's likeness. So I think that's the closest relationship to God we see is when you see that light switch turn on and you see that change.
And that has to happen for everyone. You're not cloud chasing. You're not chasing money, power, and fame. Which is the allure, the attraction, right? And wanting to belong to something. If you've been isolated and alone, and that switch, which is hard, and it has to come for every individual. When I first moved here from Seattle, I was still pretty rough and tough, and I had to reinvent myself because I was a bricklayer and I'd fallen off the scaffold, destroyed my back, and I had to, reinvent myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to go to college. I got to use my mind. I can't use my body anymore. And that was tough because I was used to using my body. And in that, but mentally, I wasn't there yet. So I'm down on Pacific with my older brother, and we've got drink and they're smoking weed, we're playing video games, we got the girls coming over, we're barbecuing, and that was pretty much 7 days a week, right? And I started going to OC, and I would go to class, and as soon as class was over, I'd go straight to my brother's house and do the same thing. So I had one foot in this world and one foot in the other world, and I'm at conflict with myself. I know what the direction is that I have to go in, but I'm trying, right? And slowly but surely, it's like, man, I can't hang out. I gotta study for this test. I can't do that. This is what it is. My brother teased me. My friends teased me. Call me bookworm. My older brother called me lean bean. And it's just like, oh, what you doing, man? That's stupid. Why you going to school? You wasting your time. Oh, you gonna be this. You gonna be that. Oh, you think they're gonna let you do these things? These are all the things that I would hear. And it got to the point where it was like, look, man, these guys are giving you fast food. They are literally paying you to go to college, and I can help you get set up. You pay your tuition, you pay your books, and there's money left over. Let me help you do it. And most of them wouldn't, they wouldn't bite on it. So slowly but surely, and it took a while. It took about, good maybe 3/4 for me to really kind of pull away from that. And it's like, you know what? I'd come over to the house. I would get the homework done before they all got up and got their showers and got ready for the day. So I still had everything good. And I'm just like, man, I want more, and I can't. If I want more, they're thinking the night shift is the spot to be, or El Caminos. And I'm like, I'd rather be in Malaga or Barbados having that same Mai Tai. You know what I'm saying? My mindset is a little different. Plus, I'm already a parent, so I'm already behind. I got to catch up. And it got to the point where I ended up teaching at the college. Never thought that would happen. And now some of my same friends are coming in trying to go to school almost 15 years later. And they're like, man, I wish I would have listened to you back then. And, unfortunately, it didn't set in for them at that time. But the only thing that I could really say to folks is what you were saying now, is really try to find yourself, know what you want to do, and really protect your meat, right? At that point in time, it's like, look, money, energy, attention, and time. I had to change my attention. I had to focus my energy in something else, and I had to put my time there. You know what I'm saying? And then I had to walk it, which meant that any investment that I had, that money had to go there. So you know what? I could go the opportunity cost, and I would tell students that didn't have any issues with criminal backgrounds or things like that. The opportunity cost of going to school is you're not at a job making money right now, but money compounds and it's exponential. So by you waiting now, when you come out with your degree and you start working, at some point, you're probably going to make $20, $30 an hour, where right now you're stuck and the best you're ever going to do is $13, $15 an hour, unless you get into a job or some kind of vocational thing where you're going to be able to do that. Well, yeah, right now you're kind of ahead of me. But within about 2 years, I'm going to get here and then I'm gone. You'll never catch me, right? Exactly. And that's the experience. And it's like, it's the opportunity cost. You're sacrificing now for a better life for yourself and your kids later. And it's just something else.
Uh, like I'm going to school right now. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like this motivates me. Not like a week ago, I like 2 weeks ago, I was just, I still getting over my mom. I got into like a little depression, and I didn't for like 1 week. I didn't do my work, and I was at like a 90 something. I look back on there, I was at a 60, and my son was doing his homework. I said, "Here, man, I'm gonna go ahead. I can't be getting on you, and I'm sitting here slacking." So I sat right there with my son, man, and knocked out all my work and let him watch me and popped it with him. And it was a cool experience. But the one thing, man, is like I get motivated like that. Like I guess it's the challenge. Like I'm not used to writing and doing all that. And then you see these college papers and you see somebody do a page and you're looking at your page like, man, why you have to do all this? They said they wanted 3 to 5 sentences. You wrote 3 to 5 paragraphs. Like this got to get mine a 70. You know what I'm saying? But I got my grade back up to a 90 right now. I'm taking a bachelor's in science and business management. But like that motivated me, that drive from being behind. You feel me? And hopefully that motivates people because when you get to doing that, like it's exciting to me. I guess I might be a nerd too, because ever since I learned, ever since I really started getting into books and educating myself and doing books on psychology and reading like that, like you can't never not find something interesting to read.
To that end too, you said about an hour ago, that the kids are being allowed just to kind of just sail through, right? And I would tell folks all the time, you get what you put out, right? What you put into it. So, I would hear C's get degrees, and I hate that, right? And while C's do get degrees, I don't want that to be my open heart surgeon. I don't want that to be the person that engineered the bridge, right? I need
Yeah.
someone that paid attention, that did the extra credit, that read, did the extra work. That's who I want operating on me or my loved one. I don't want the C that got degrees or the D because that's a 1.0. Well, that's passing, Mr. Cameron. They would tell me stuff like that. And that's really what it is. So when you see those that have to do 4 sentences but they write a whole page, they're really digging into it. And I encourage a lot of people to do that. Whatever it is that you're trying to figure out, really dig into it. Don't do just enough.
Yeah, I believe that too. Like I try to tell my sons and my daughter all the time, like, man, challenge yourself. When you don't challenge yourself, nobody else is. So if you're not challenging yourself, you're never going to reach your full potential. And I think that's a lot of time that I wasted. I never allowed myself to reach my full potential when I was young. So I'm reaching my full potential now because I was incarcerated. But I think that would probably be the best thing to tell them is like you got to reach your potential. Why shoot for 60? It's like I asked my son the other day. I was like, hey, if I had $60 right here and you could grab it and leave and go to the store, but I told you I got $100 if you just wait till tomorrow. Which one is you gonna take? And he said, I'm gonna take the 60. I said, and that's how you're gonna live your life. Gone in 60 seconds. Because a real smart person is gonna think about that. Okay, I can take 60, but if I just wait till tomorrow, I got 40 extra bucks. I'm waiting till tomorrow. But the average person doesn't have enough trust to believe it's gonna be there tomorrow when a person tells them that. So they take the 60. And that's from what I've learned is how you learn a lot about how people act in life because they go with the first thing they can touch. Not they ain't gonna wait. It's like my mom one day. She's like, "Would you wait 3 months to get 5,000 or take 500 today?" I was like, "I'm gonna take 500 today." She's like, "You stupid." Just that's my mama. So she's like, "You stupid." I would have waited 3 months for the 5,000. It's you know what I'm saying. It adds up the same. But I
And I
guess
tell
it's
you, Anton, power is taken. It's not given. It's our responsibility to raise our children. We can make excuses and say the public school system should do this, that, and the other.
no,
They're
you got to
not.
take it in your
So
own
we have
hands.
to do it. There's an arcade around the corner from G2. And, I take Layla up there and it's like Chuck E. Cheese, right? Where you get the tokens, you get the little tickets for, doing well in the game. So we get the tickets at the end. She's ready to spend it all up. But I'm trying to teach her a lesson about instant gratification and saving. And so at the beginning, she'd be really sad. It's like, no, you can't spend all these tickets. You can get one piece of candy. You got 500 tickets. You can spend 50 tickets. Right. And she might pout like, well, I don't want to spend any then. Okay, cool. Or, why can't I spend more? But then after a few times of going, oh, now she's got 1,500 tickets. Now she's looking and saying, oh, I don't have to get the little stuff in this glass. I can get the stuff on the wall. Now she's pumped, right?
Yeah.
We got almost 5,000 tickets because now she don't want to spend the tickets. She sees the power in saving, but this
It's
is,
like we ain't spending. They're gonna have a car soon. It's gonna
you
be
know
a
what I'm
car. I'm
saying?
gonna get yeah. That's smart. It's teaching her how to invest. That's what I try to teach my kids. Best thing I can say, like that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is one of the best books that you can have your kid read if you break it down. And like if I was to give a person advice on how to help their kids read at a young age, I would break them down by chapters, but I would break them down, and if they're small enough, I would make them read a page and then sit on that, tell you about that page, and then read the next page and just go through it with them slowly, because Rich Dad Poor Dad is actually one of the best books I've read on teaching your kids how to make their money work for them, what the rich people tell their kids that the poor people don't.
Yeah. What is saving? What is interest? How does interest compound? Yeah, all those things.
And
What are stocks? You
and I
know?
got some people that are going to come on here, and some of them are day traders. Like there's cats that I know got out of prison and they're making a lot of money day trading and in stocks and real estate. Like there's millionaires from prison doing this because this dude came, older white man came, and he was a day trader. So what he ended up doing is he started teaching these little black cats in a day room that was just sitting around playing dominoes. Like, hey, you guys want to learn something? I'll show you how you might be able to invest some money. Instead of have $100 cent for your store, you could take that $100 and I'll teach you how to invest and make it money. Well, now you have these young. Now this is crazy. Facts. You have these young black men right now in the state of Washington in prison system that get probably three within a 3 year window of getting out, but they've been down maybe 15, 20 years. Well, they got over a couple $100,000 in their bank because they've been flipping houses and teaching their girlfriends or their brothers and moms and dads how to do this stuff. So, like, I ain't even seen. Like, I asked my son, like, when do you guys have a book? Like when I was little, you can go to school and your mom give you $5, you get to buy you a little cool book and you get to run around the library and act like you shopping. And it was the coolest thing when I was little. I ain't seen my son have no thing like that, So it's kind of like how do you get a kid to read when you ain't making it fun? Like you gotta, everything ain't gonna be fun, but you want to make it worth it.
Anton, you what you're saying is 100% there. I've got a daughter, and there are some stats that show, and then we try to reinforce those things negatively, that girls are not as good at math than the boys are, right? And so because of that, what ends up happening is if you get in front of the wrong teacher, they kind of lean into that, right? And then the kids become scared, and then they reject it. Well, I love numbers. Her mama loves numbers. And so I don't want her to be afraid of math. And so we've always made a game of it. And so we'll do equations in the car if we're sitting in church and it's a little boring. I'll write equations down, and she loves the challenge. I was just saying on another podcast, I think yesterday, for the Kids at Regional Library was on, when she goes on a plane with grandma, we'll go to Barnes and Noble and get a book. And she's like, oh, I want a math book. I'm like, sweetie, you ain't got to get a math book. You can get whatever you want. She's like, that's what I want, Daddy. But now she loves the numbers. She loves the math. She loves problem solving. She's not afraid of it, And that was what was important to me. And so, what I wanted to say is we're ending for today is understand that you have a bunch of knowledge, skills, and abilities. And this is for men and women that are in their life and looking to do something else. And so you have all these knowledge, skills, and abilities, and these knowledge, skills, and abilities, these KSAs, they're transferable. They're transferable skills. So if you were hustling, that means that you understand how to make money, right? You understand how money works. You understand how, you got your re-up. We were talking about that earlier, right? So you got that to the side. And then you're going to go ahead and make that money, and you got to put that to the side, and then you're going to grow, So you already have that. You have folks that have natural leadership abilities, right? That people you're charismatic, you keep things organized, and people are going to follow you, right? That's management, right? And so Anton's going into business management. You're leveraging a lot of skills that you already have, right? That people listen to you and they follow you, and now you're putting, practical, or you're getting the theory behind it. You already have the application, and you're putting both of those things together, right? Which just makes you stronger at what you're going to do to help others. And so think about that, because you have it. And when you have it, have conversations with other people that you trust, and reach yourself out there and meet some other folks that can help you realize the knowledge, skills, and abilities you have and how you can make those work for you in other arenas of life so that you can be successful. I want to give you the last word, Anton.
I just want to thank y'all for watching, and I want to thank y'all for being a part of something, man. It's beautiful that we could come together and we could talk about ideas, we could talk about topics in the community, and we could talk about topics with our people. I just want to thank everybody for participating with the Men of Motivation and the Survive and Change organization, and Marwan and his podcast. I appreciate you, man, and I appreciate the things that you're doing, man, and the motivation that you're giving people.
Absolutely.
And Miss Deborah, hold on. I like to give a shout out to my 3 coworkers, the 3 black women I work with, Lulu, Deborah, and Letitia. Is that what is it? Felicia? Is it Felicia? Yeah. I thought they called her. Oh, that's because you know a girl kind of resembles you earlier.
So say their names again.
Felicia, Miss Lulu, and Miss Deborah, man. I want to give shout out, man. 3 strong black women, man. It's a good thing to be a black man and be able to work with 3 strong black women.
Bam. Go ahead and give them the horn.
Yeah, you got to. They work hard, man. They working real hard in here every day trying to get people they rent and help people out, man. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's trying to do something to help somebody else out and not just themselves.
Okay. Well, I look forward to, our continued conversations here for people to learn and gain some insight. Did you get that movie that I dropped off for you?
Did you drop it off on here?
Yeah, I had I had someone bring it by physically. Should have brought it by a couple hours ago.
To this office? Did somebody?
Yeah, ask Miss Deborah. It might be there.
Yeah. Oh yes, it is here.
Good. All right.
It is here. I'm gonna watch that.
So we got some cool things coming up that we're planning. So stay tuned for that. For Anton, I am Marwan Cameron. This is The Conduit. We will see you next time.